What makes a good Warzone map? Let's find out. The landscape of a map is the most important defining feature. Elevation and area placement should feel logical. A good example of this is Rebirth Island. The biggest point of interest is the prison for obvious reasons, but it's also at the top of the map elevation wise and is in the center. From there, you can see all other points of interest on the map, which are at a lower elevation and a short running distance from the prison, but a bigger detour is needed to reach them via the smaller locations, which give each place its own battle space. Compare this to basically the bigger version of this, Vanguard's Caldera map. Although having the same concept with Peak being at the main point of interest in the middle of the map, elevated as the highest point with everything else around it, Caldera has kilometers of dead zone between each area. Vehicles are few and far between, so if you don't have a car, get ready for a long, boring run through the forest, usually resulting in someone beaming you down anyways. I get it's the theme of the map being in World War II as well as having a 150 player capacity, but the fact that there was enough space for King Kong and Godzilla to run around the map speaks for itself. Different areas of the map should feel easily accessible, not blocking off players from areas or trapping them in unsurvivable situations. Although at the very beginning Verdansk had some problems with this, they later added more zip lines and access points around the map, like in the Cliffs of Summit. And although being a 150 player sized map, the only place that would really give you a big disadvantage was the clear open space in the airport. Other than that, there was more than enough towns at an appropriate distance to grab a vehicle to travel or take cover in. This makes the map feel overall less constricted and more fair regardless of what circle may happen. And although Caldera would benefit with more vehicles and towns between each area, there is a problem with too much accessibility, like seen in Rebirth's Fortune's Keep map. Even with just 40 players, it feels so congested because of the countless hallways, building entrances, and smaller points of interest around the map. Basically giving no room for your team to breathe, making it much harder to predict where enemy teams are coming from, which further amplifies the luck of the draw aspect of the map and game mode. Warzone maps are expected to be used at a year or so's length, so it's vital that the devs add new points of interest on the map and small events to give players something new to try. A good example of this was Verdansk. They added so much to the map over the 6 seasons, like the teleporting red door loot rooms, the train, destroyed downtown with bunkers, along with fun events like the armored truck and my personal favorite, the addition of the Die Hard tower with the 80s skins. Honestly brought so much hype to the game across the year and kept it feeling new. A bad example of this is Caldera having additions like the Krampus only a few weeks into Season 1 that would ruin your plans every other game. And Kong v Zilla. The video we did on it basically speaks for itself. Although the additions of the dig site and the updates to Peak were nice, it doesn't take away the other problems of the map mentioned earlier. A map should have an appealing color scheme and lighting that makes it easy to identify objects and enemies, as well as being able to render a decent distance for players to see clearly from far away regardless if they're scoped in or not. As funny as this sounds, this has been a big problem for the console versions of Warzone. For example, Verdansk. I love the map, but even on PS5 it always had this brown poo-stained filter accompanied with its afternoon lighting, making the colors all look dim and depressing and hard to identify things from a distance. And although Caldera was during midday, for some reason it had this insanely bright white shading filter for the first few seasons, making things blinding and irritating to look at. A map that has a good color scheme is both Fortune's Keep and Alcaraz. Rebirth Island had its midday version, which made the map bright and the colors saturated, while Fortune's Keep's rendering has been very clear while looking through scopes, accompanied with decent lighting, at least on the PS5. So what about Warzone 2's map? Well, it's adding new gameplay elements to Warzone that weren't seen before, like the specific item drops at specific areas, which is exactly what the series needs, but we'll have to wait and see for ourselves. Though, judging from how the Modern Warfare 2 beta plays, it's looking to be really fun since I've been having a blast with the beta, but it does have one big problem. You can find out what that is in the video in the end card.